Morning, everyone. Welcome to the Accommodation for Work Supporting Hostel Residents into Employment webinar. We're the Accommodation for Work project team from BHT Sussex in Brighton. I'm Bernadette Lynch, the project manager.
I'm Dominique Gallagher, project support and advice worker.
I'm Lindsay Morn, project support and advice worker.
And I'm Judith Bradshaw, the work placement coordinator.
Just bear with us a moment whilst we get our screens up. Okay, so today we'll go through some housekeeping about how we're going to be using Zoom. We'll then tell you about how the Accommodation for Work project started. Then we'll spend some time talking about the client group that we're going to be focusing on today. There'll be an interactive quiz and we'll be discussing the results. We'll then be sharing our Getting Ready for Work calculator. And finally, we'll be having a Q&A to end the webinar.
So today, people are welcome to use the chat if they have any comments or want to share any links. However, we won't be monitoring chat throughout the presentation. If you have any questions, please write them using the Q&A function, which is at the bottom of your screen. You can add to this throughout the course of the presentation. If there are any questions that you'd like a specific reply to, please include your email address and we will reply to you individually at a later date. If you see a question in the Q&A that you'd also like to be answered, please give it a thumbs up and it will help us prioritize which questions we'll be able to answer in the time that we have today.
We're going to start by giving you a background of BHT Sussex. BHT Sussex is a housing association and homeless charity in Brighton and Hove and now into East and West Sussex, which has been running for over 50 years. As a housing association, we have over 400 units of general needs accommodation. BHT Sussex also runs various services, including a homeless day centre supporting rough sleepers in Brighton and Hove, and a legal aid service in Brighton and Eastbourne, providing housing and immigration legal advice. BHT Sussex has a variety of supported housing projects, including 24-hour high needs hostels, mental health services, and drug and alcohol recovery services.
So the Accommodation for Work project is one of those services. And on the screen, hopefully you'll see two of our project houses. In 2009, we saw that there was a gap in services in Brighton and Hove, where people were homeless and working, but they could not access accommodation. They seemed to be falling through the net of traditional homeless services, and where their needs were seen as too low, but without help, their situations were getting worse. At this time, BHT Sussex had a service with 3 6-bed houses, which was being decommissioned. Our vision was to start a service where people who were homeless could settle and have the support to sustain and secure employment. We wanted to create a support package where people could remain in work, get the training they needed, explore education, and get help to prepare and apply for jobs. In 2010, we were successful with our bid to the National Lottery, and we were able to start the project. Dominique joined the team in 2010, with Lindsay joining a year later. Our funding covers staff costs and some project expenses. Residents need to pay the full rent and service charge, just as in any other supported housing. If residents require help with their housing costs, they need to apply for housing benefit. How much people earn determines how much help they will get from housing benefit.
So as you can see from the slide, there's photos of some of the inside of our houses. People share the facilities with the other residents, including the kitchen, bathrooms, lounge, washing machine and tumble dryer. The hope is that residents can move in and have everything that they need to start moving forward. All residents were homeless prior to entering the project, and for many people, this was their first experience of homelessness. This early intervention is crucial in minimising the impact and trauma of homelessness and helping people to continue with their lives and work. We saw how important it was for people to have a safe place to stay. One of our first residents was a refugee who had been rough sleeping in Brighton for some time. He was traumatised and afraid of living with other people. He was able to view the house and meet other residents and then felt reassured. With the support of the project, he was able to access training, find work as a security guard, and he moved into his own studio flat a year later. A young man was working nights at Asda and rough sleeping on the beach during the day. Another person had been made redundant and his relationship had broken down. He'd used all his redundancy pay on B&Bs as he didn't know how to access benefits. A young woman was working as a carer in the day, using night buses to sleep and showering in the public swimming pool. Accommodation for Work project supports single men and women aged 18 to 67 from a diverse range of backgrounds. We work holistically with residents to address any additional support needs, including physical and mental health, offending, substance misuse, and gambling issues. Over the past few years, we've seen an increase in referrals for 18 to 25-year-olds, which has led us to develop an essential skills programme, as some of these residents had never lived independently before. This helped us identify any unmet needs.
On your screen at the moment, you'll see a quote from one of our referrers.
We need to go to slide 7, sorry, Elizabeth.
I think they're on slide 7. Okay. Yes. So as someone who works on a rapid rehousing scheme for rough sleepers, I have found accommodation for work essential for people who have newly hit the streets, preventing them from becoming entrenched and involved in negative activity by providing a supportive opportunity that community interest companies and traditional supported housing can't. If you could go to slide 8, please, Elizabeth. The project has developed significantly during this time and has taken lead on work and learning in the city. We run the annual Getting Ready for Work event, which brings together work and learning providers with homeless services in the city. The events have become a valuable resource in the city and attract an average of 100 participants each year. Slide 9, please. Over the 15 years that the project has been running, we have worked with 438 people. We took on another house several years ago, so now we have 4 houses which accommodate 22 residents. Residents agree to do at least 3 days of work, volunteering, or learning a week. Stays at the project are up to a year, and all residents have weekly key work meetings and a personalised employment plan. Referrals are made to careers advice, and support is given to access training courses and apply for funding. We also support residents with accessing the right benefits, budgeting their money, and securing move-on accommodation. Help is also given with other aspects of their lives, including registering with doctors and dentists and accessing leisure activities. We have learned how important it is for people to have support and time to settle, but also a sense of momentum to identify and achieve their goals. Slide 10, please.
The Work Placement Programme. I'm Judith, and I joined the project in 2023 as the Work Placement Coordinator. This role was introduced because most accommodation for work residents wanted to find paid work, but some were struggling to do so for reasons such as lack of confidence, lack of experience, or having a gap in their work history. Others wanted to try out a new area of work. We saw how valuable it would be to broker short work placements as part of the project support. The programme supports people to gain workplace experience by offering pre-placement training and preparation, shadow days or short workplace visits, a supported voluntary placement lasting somewhere between 1 to 4 weeks, and then there's follow-up support to help residents plan the next steps further to the placement. The programme has been successful with accommodation for work residents and is now also offered out to other residents in supported accommodation across the city. These projects have been quick to show an interest, seeing the work placement programme as a safe and supported way for their residents to gain work experience. When meeting with residents, I establish the type of role that they would like to get experience in, and then I reach out to local businesses for a placement to try and match this interest. Further to attending placements, 33% have gone on to secure paid work within the first month, and another third or so have gone on into sort of volunteering roles. Businesses who have posted placements have given positive feedback, with 100% saying they've been happy with the placement went. Can we have slide 11, please?
For the purposes of today's session, we wanted to clarify the client group that we'll be focusing on, which is single adults living in supported accommodation. This might be a homeless hostel, mental health supported accommodation, addiction recovery services, etc. For the purposes of today, when speaking of supported accommodation, or homeless hostels, we use these terms interchangeably. Accommodation might vary from small shared houses to large hostels or self-contained flats. We're aware that this covers a broad spectrum of people and not all of them will be ready for work. I'll focus today on those who are really thinking about work. The focus is on residents who are claiming universal credit, not legacy benefits, and who will need to claim housing benefit for help towards their rent. We will also be covering the 3 categories of universal credit, which you probably know, but they're the fit to work, limited capability for work, LCW, and limited capability for work-related activity, LCWRA. We're going to go into more detail on this when we demonstrate the calculator later. And just a reminder, if you do have any questions, please put them in the Q&A and we will hopefully get to them later.
Can we go to slide 12, please? So we've put together a quiz about today's topics and we'll have 8 questions. We'll go through all the questions first and then we'll go through all the responses together. It's a good way for us to hear from you today and it'll be an opportunity to look together at some of the challenges that exist for people who are homeless and who want to go into work. So Elizabeth, can you put up the questions, please? The question 1, what are the main barriers for people living in hostels who want to work? You can choose as many as you think are relevant. I'll give you about 20 seconds. Okay, question 2. Elizabeth, are you all right to slide up a little bit so we can see the answers? So in 2013, Crisis did a survey asking people who were homeless if they had previously worked. What percentage of respondents said they had worked in the past? Okay, and question 3, in the 2021 census, how many people who identified as homeless were employed?
I'm not sure if is everyone seeing the poll questions and able to answer them. Some people are saying there's no question or they can't vote or the response box has disappeared.
Elizabeth, can you help?
Behind this window.
We're just getting people starting to vote on the second question.
Okay.
Okay, we can't, yeah.
We can only see the first answer. Okay, it's all right.
They can only see the first answer.
Can't they see the second one?
No.
Yeah, people are saying they can't see anything and the box has disappeared. Yeah, someone said I clicked submit on the first question and then it disappeared. Someone else is working.
A lot of technical hitches today. Sorry, guys.
Sorry.
Yeah, people, you are supposed to vote.
Okay, I've stopped sharing the presentation now, so you should be seeing maybe just the poll.
Just the logo.
No, people are not seeing it.
Some people have responded to the question, so I think some people are seeing them. So if they may just need to scroll down the poll, I think, possibly.
Can people do that on the screen? Can they just scroll down themselves?
Yeah, they should be able to do that.
Okay.
Right.
We'll
Hold
carry
on,
on.
sorry, but people are saying there is no poll now,
Oh, yes.
that they cannot see the poll. You could put it back up.
Okay, we've had 34 responses for the first question, but fewer for the others. Shall I just share the result and then you can go through the question?
No, we wanted to just carry on with the poll if possible, Elizabeth, and then we're going to go through the results at the end, if that's okay. So if the poll questions could be up for people and we'll go through them.
Yeah, some people are saying that the poll disappeared after they submitted the first answer.
Okay, so hi, it's Naomi here. We can share the results that we have in, which is from 36 people who've answered the poll, all the questions.
Maybe we'll just have to.
We've only asked
We do.
two questions up to now, Naomi, so we've still got 6 questions we'd like to ask.
Okay, so you need to just keep going and let people answer them.
We don't have any sense that the poll is currently being shared. Certainly we can't see it from our side. Thank you.
We'll carry on going through the questions.
So it's possible that you need to not hit submit until the end.
Yes, yeah, I think do answer all the questions first as we go through them and then submit at the end.
That's advice for the audience.
Yes. Yeah.
And scroll down, yeah.
Okay, so question 4.
Yes. Okay, so question 4. What are the main non-financial incentives for people to work? Again, please choose as many as you think are relevant, and I'll give you some time to answer that. Question 5. Do you think hostel and supported accommodation rents are too high for residents to afford when working? Question 6. How many hours a week can a person work before their benefits are affected?
Moving on to question 7. How much can someone over 25 years old in the LCWRA group of UC earn per calendar month before their housing benefit is affected? And our final question, question 8. If a resident is wanting to work and asked you how their wages would impact on their benefits, how confident would you be in answering their question? So that's the end of our quiz. Elizabeth, if you're now able to share the responses, that would be great. And then we will go through the results and share some reflections with everyone.
Looking at your responses to question 1, sorry, we've got it on the soft computer. Yeah, it's really quite interesting because very high is fear of losing benefit and hostel and housing rents are too high. People can be fearful. I mean, all of these are barriers, and I think everyone's identified that all of these are barriers for hostel residents who want to work. And there may well be others that we haven't listed. People can be fearful of losing their benefit should they start work. However, if people do earn too much to qualify for universal credit, their claim is kept open for 6 months. So if their income drops, their universal credit will go back into payment without the need to reclaim. People can also be fearful about losing their sickness-related benefits. We've been reassured by the Job Centre that if an individual started working, it should not trigger a work capability assessment review, which would have to happen before someone's category of universal credit would change.
People do worry about leaving what's familiar and risking their security. This is particularly understandable when people have experienced homelessness. However, it is possible for people to work and successfully maintain their accommodation if they have the right support. Another perception is that people won't be better off in work. Actually, people are always financially better off in work, but sometimes only marginally. For example, one of our residents is working in security 2 days a week, and he's only £85 a month better off than before he was working. However, he sees this as a start and values the other aspects of work that are beneficial to him, like having a routine, gaining experience, and having a purpose.
The setting of a hostel is not conducive for people to work. This can be true, as some hostel environments can be more chaotic and can have upwards of 50 residents. However, work can provide an opportunity to focus on moving forward and increasing independence. Housing providers don't allow or discourage residents to work. This is an issue we've come up against a lot in Brighton and Hove in recent years, as some hostels discourage people from working or only allow them to work part-time as long as they continue to get full housing benefit. Housing providers can be fearful about residents losing benefits and having to pay their rent from their wages, which could lead to rent arrears and possible evictions. Realistically, there is a risk of people not paying their rent from their wages, and we have dealt with this a number of times. However, the vast majority of working residents do pay their rent, so we feel strongly that it is everyone's right to work if they want to, and they should be supported to do so.
Health and support needs. Some people's health and support needs at any given time may mean that they're not in a position to work, and we do understand and respect this. However, many people who have health issues and support needs do want to look at their work and learning options. For example, one of our residents who was 18, had autism, ADHD and mental health issues, was determined to work, and he secured an apprenticeship. The routine and structure enabled him to manage his health and build social connections that he didn't have before. He's recently moved to his own accommodation and continues to do well. Hostel and supported housing rents are too high. This is something that we hear a lot. This is a barrier because people believe this is true, and often hostel rents are very high. However, we will be discussing this in more detail shortly. Low confidence, lack of skills, lack of work experience. Again, these are real barriers. Experiencing homelessness can have a significant impact on people's self-confidence and self-esteem. And it can also be a reason why people have gaps in their CVs.
We do have a slide 14. I don't know whether it can be shown, but I will read it out if there is a problem with that. Research shows there is a strong correlation between the length of time someone is out of work and the likelihood of returning to work. According to the DWP Keep Britain Working report for 2025, those who are out of work for less than a year are 5 times more likely to return to work compared to those who are out of work longer. Therefore, it's really important for homeless services to keep work on the agenda. For example, asking what work experience people have had, identifying gaps in skills, and promoting and encouraging meaningful activity at a time and a pace that's right for the person.
If we can have a look at the responses for questions 2 and 3, please. Are people seeing it? I'm not seeing the poll results yet.
We're still on question 1. Oh, can we scroll down?
Can we scroll down?
Oh, apologies, sorry.
Apologies, that's our
Human error.
Okay, so in the 2013 crisis survey, the percentage of people who were homeless and had previously worked is 88%. And obviously 24% of people have said that. People thought it was lower than that. This figure is high and does indicate that the demographic of people who are homeless have worked and may want to return to work in the future. Question 3, in the 2021 census, 11.6% of people who were homeless were employed. Yeah, people can even call it split. This really demonstrates the link between homelessness and worklessness. Whilst it can be difficult for people to sustain work when rough sleeping or sofa surfing, there can be multiple barriers to work when people are living in hostels or supported accommodation.
So now question 4, and looking at your responses, it looks like probably the most popular answers for the non-financial incentives for people to work is having a purpose and routine and improving self-esteem and mental well-being. In preparing this question, we could all relate to these positive aspects of working over and above any financial incentive. While there are specific barriers for working hostel residents, it is so important to recognise everything that people can gain from being in work. Unemployment has consistently been found to have a negative impact on a range of health conditions, including mental health issues such as depression, anxiety, and levels of self-esteem. As the poll indicates, all of these incentives and more are the reasons why people want to work, aside from the financial benefits. If we could go to slide 17. You'll see quotes from some of our working residents, which shows just how much of a boost that work can give people. This particular quote, one of our residents said that work makes them feel proud, positive, and unstoppable.
So we'll now move to question 5, where we were asking whether people thought hostel rents are too high for working people to afford. Yes. And I can see that that's, I can't quite see the figure, is 92%. Yeah, 92% of people think hostel residents are too high.
Hostel rents.
What did I say?
Residents.
Oh. Yeah, but that might be high. So, yes, the overwhelming majority of people think that hostel rents are too high for working people. And we have to acknowledge that hostel rents can be high. They can be very high, actually. And in Brighton, we've seen some hostel rents as high as £400 per week for a room in a hostel. However, hostel residents can claim housing benefit for their rent. So if somebody's working and gets any UC at all, even just 1 pence, they will get full housing benefit to cover their rent. Often, the misconception is that the person will have to pay their full rent from their wages once they're working, and that this would be unaffordable. Once somebody is earning too much to receive any UC, then the housing benefit will start to reduce and is calculated based on the person's earnings. It's extremely unlikely, however, that a person would be earning so much that they'd have to pay their full rent if it's £400 per week. For example, even if someone's monthly income after tax was as much as £2,900, housing benefit would still be in payment, paying £21.36 per month towards this person's rent. Housing benefit tops up the difference between what the person has to contribute towards their rent and the full rent. So it's not about how much your rent is, it's all about how much you earn. If anyone's feeling bamboozled by these figures, all will be revealed when we go through the calculator, so please do try and stay with us. And again, please put any questions you might have in the Q&A section. We'll now move on to question 6.
Looking at your responses to question 6, yes, we've got, I mean, obviously it's spread there. Most people have put in, it's not about how much you earn, it's about the number of hours you work.
And that is the correct answer.
Correct answer, yes. The answer is D. This was a bit of a trick question. With universal credit, the amount of hours someone works does not determine their benefit amount. There is a misconception that claimants can work up to 16 hours a week and their benefits will not be affected. Universal credit has no 16-hour rule. Legacy benefits such as ESA did have a 16-hour component, but that is not relevant to universal credit. Confusingly, housing benefit have an additional disregard for over 25s who work 30 hours or more, which means they will get a little bit more help with housing benefit. For every £1 you earn, universal credit is deducted by 55p. As long as you receive 1 penny of universal credit, you will get full housing benefit. People in LCW and LCWRA categories are entitled to what is called the hire work allowance, which is £684 per calendar month. This means they can earn up to £684 a month before they see any reduction to their UC. The hire worker allowance applies to people living in hostels or supported accommodation, known as specified exempt accommodation. We have developed the calculator to specifically support this group of people. The takeaway is, it's not about the number of hours worked, it's about how much a person earns.
Okay, question 7. Let's have a look at your responses. So most people, the highest response was just over £727. People thought that if somebody was over 25 in the LCWRA group of UC, that's how much they could earn before their housing benefit is affected. The answer is actually C, £2,181.09. It's surprising, isn't it? We've spoken a lot about how expensive rents can be, some of them up to £400 a week. In this example, the person's full rent would still be covered by housing benefit. The reason for this is that people who are in the LCWRA group receive an additional UC element, and they also get the higher work allowance. These incentives are there to support people with health conditions back into work. We're aware that there's a lot of talk about cuts to disability benefits, but our calculator reflects the current situation. Okay, and then slide 21, sorry. So if you look at the slides now, we've put the highest amount someone could earn and still be in receipt of full housing benefit, which we've rounded down to the nearest pound. As you're probably aware, the benefit rates differ to people who are over or under 25. For example, if you're in the Fit for Work group and you're over 25, the amount you can earn before your housing benefit is impacted is £727 a month. We'll give you a moment just to have a look at the table.
Can I just check, can people see the table? I just wanted to ask whether the poll was over the table, but I think people should now be able to see the table.
Yeah, got a thumbs up there.
Yeah,
Right. Fantastic. Yeah. However, now if it's possible to share the poll again, just for the final question. The poll has disappeared to me. You can move the poll.
Yeah.
Down. So, thank you. I can see that now. So the last question was about if a resident wants to work and asked you how their wages would impact on their benefits. We asked you how confident you'd be in answering those questions. Most people put unsure. About 50% of people put unsure. 33% people were very confident, and 13% had no idea at all. There's no doubt it can be complicated, as it can be very different depending on a person's circumstances. In the Accommodation to Work project, 50 to 75% of our residents are working at any given time, and they will all be in very different situations and earning different amounts. We had to quickly become good at doing the calculations because residents wanted to know how earnings would impact on their benefits and how much rent they'd have to pay. While most of our residents are mainly in the Fit to Work group, we do have people in the LCW and LCWRA groups, and we've needed to be on top of all of these very confusing figures. So we've developed our Getting Ready for Work calculator for that exact reason. So we are now going to attempt to share our calculator. So I think, Elizabeth, you will probably need to stop sharing your screen so that we can share ours. Can people see our calculator now? Yes, brilliant. Okay, so I'm just going to take you through how it works. So on the screen, you'll see the calculator, and we will go through this now before going through some individual case studies. So the first question is about how old the person is, and that is simply to establish whether you are over or under 25. The next question is how many hours a week do you work? This only matters when people are over 25 and working more than 30 hours a week for the additional housing benefit disregard we mentioned earlier. You don't have to put in any hours, as people are often unsure how many hours they'll be working or their hours might vary. Then you enter the monthly take-home pay after tax or an estimate of how much you think you might earn. Next, you select whether you're fit to work or have LCW or LCWRA. And the next question is whether you receive PIP or not. This question is only relevant for people who claim PIP and who are earning too much to receive any UC. We've put a disclaimer in the results page for people in that situation. The next question is about how much your rent is, including service charge each month. And finally, how much is your monthly service charge? This is something people have to pay regardless of whether they're working or not, as housing benefit does not cover this. This is going to be interesting because we will need to share some slides for this and then go back and forth between the calculator. So I suppose I'll stop sharing for the moment, or I might see if anyone can see our slides now.
Only 3.
Thank you. Can everyone see the case study Amal on their screen on the slides? Yes, amazing. Okay.
Oh. Okay, so we are going to take you through some case studies now to show you how the calculator works in practice. And we're going to start with Amal. So Amal is 23, lives in a hostel, and she's in the fit to work category. Her rent is at the higher end, £400 per week, which works out to £1,733 per month. This includes a £100 per month service charge. She's going to be working as a barista 10 hours a week at a minimum wage of £12.21 an hour, which works out to be £529.10 a month. Mal would like to know what the impact of this will be on her benefits. So we'll now go back to the calculator so that we can work through this case study. So Amal is 23. She'll be working 10 hours per week. Her take-home pay will be £529.10. She's in the Fit to Work group. She's not claiming PIP. Her rent, including her service charge, is £1,733 per month, with a service charge of £100 per month. Then you just click on the orange button to get the results. It takes you into another page. And you'll see that we have a disclaimer here at the top saying that these results are not a guarantee of any entitlement to benefits, as claimants will still need to liaise with their benefit agencies. However, the results will now show that Amal will still receive £25.97 from Universal Credit, giving her a total income of £555.08. Because she receives some UC still, housing benefit will pay her full rent and she will still just have to pay her service charge of £100. So she will be £238 better off for being in work per month.
And moving on to Steve. Steve is 38. He's living in supported accommodation. He's in the LCW group of UC and he's also claiming PIP. He's just returned to work as an IT technician part-time. His monthly income after tax is £1,200 per calendar month. His monthly rent is £900, which includes a £50 service charge. If we go to the calculator, we just input the details again. So Steve is 38. We're not sure how many hours he'll be working. As we know, it doesn't matter, so we'll put 20. His take-home pay will be £1,200. And he's in the limited capability for work category. He's claiming PIP, yes. His monthly rent, including service charge, is £900, and he pays £50 service charge. Again, click for the results. As we explained earlier, there's a disclaimer about PIP, which would not affect Steve's calculation as he still gets some universal credit. Due to the £684 higher work allowance Steve receives for being in the LCW group and living in a hostel, Steve would receive £116.34 universal credit, making his total income 1316.34, including his wages. housing benefit would continue to pay in full, so he will just be paying his £50 service charge, making him £916 better off a month.
Okay, another case study. We've got Jess. She's 19 and living in a young person's hostel. She's in the LCWRA group of UC and receives PIP. She attends college studying dental nursing and is hoping to start a paid apprenticeship earning £750 a month. She wants to know how her earnings will impact her £1,500 rent, which includes the service charge of £75. So if we go to the calculator, she is 19. We're not sure how many hours she's going to work. And as we know, hours don't really matter. So we put 0 in. Her take home will be £750. She's in the LCWRA category. She gets PIP. And her monthly rent, including a service charge, is £1,500. And her service charge is £75. Again, we click the orange button to get the results. Takes us to the next page. So as you can see, she'll receive £703.95 from UC. This is because she's receiving the LCWRA element and the higher work allowance, making her total income with her wages £1,453.95 a month. Housing benefit would pay her full rent, and she would pay her £75 service charge, making her £713 a month better off in work.
So now to our final case study. Dave. Dave, 52, is living at the Accommodation for Work project. He's in the Fit to Work category of UC. His rent is £900 per calendar month, which includes a service charge of £100. He started working as a gardener on a flexible hour contract. He's been earning £600 a month, but he's been told his earnings and hours will increase. So we're going to start with the calculator with this initial scenario. So Dave is 52. He's not sure how many hours he's going to be working, but we're putting in 7. His take-home pay is £600 initially. He's in the Fit to Work group. He's not claiming PIP. His rent, including service charge, is £900 per month. His service charge is £100 per month. We click on the orange tab for the results, and you'll see that Dave will still receive £70.14 from Universal Credit, giving him a total income of £670.14. Housing benefits still pay his full rent, and he still pays his service charge. Okay, we're now going to create a scenario where Dave's income goes up to £720. So we go back to the first page. You don't need to enter all the results again, all the information again. You can keep that all in place and just enter the new income of £720. Click again for the results. And you can now see that he receives, his income from Universal Credit has dropped, and he gets Universal Credit of £4.14. So he still gets full housing benefit, and his total income has gone up. We now change to another scenario. This time, Dave earns £730 per month. We click on the orange tab, and now you will note that his scenario changes dramatically. As you can see, Dave's total income is £730. By earning just £10 a month more, he now gets no Universal Credit. Housing benefit will now calculate his entitlement based on his wages. Housing benefit calculates differently to Universal Credit. Rather than just having to pay his £100 service charge, he now has to pay an additional £201.14 towards his rent. So he is actually now less well off than the previous scenario when he was earning £720. In the other examples, we've seen how earnings create a steady decrease in how much UC a person receives. However, due to the difference between how UC and housing benefit earnings treat the earnings, once someone earns too much to qualify for UC, there is a sharp drop in housing benefit, which we refer to the cliff edge and which people need to be mindful of.
So this cliff edge is one of the downsides of having to claim both universal credit and housing benefit. This is an unfairness in the benefit system that disadvantages anyone who has to claim housing benefit and universal credit. We have come up against this frequently in the project. We have raised this issue with our local housing benefit department, which has agreed that we can apply for discretionary housing payments to reduce the impact of the cliff edge, but this is far from an ideal solution. We have found this to be a fundamental flaw and a barrier that causes a lot of confusion and has led to hostel residents being discouraged from working. This is why we were so motivated to create the calculator as a tool to support people living in hostels so they can know where they stand if they go into work. Many of our residents want to work regardless of any financial implication because work is important to them. We have developed our knowledge through the experiences of our residents who really want to work despite the barriers they may face.
BHT Sussex has been campaigning to make the system fairer for working hostel residents by lobbying MPs and the DWP, and with our Make Work Pay for Everyone campaign. In the past year, we've been working with senior DWP officials to look at ways this could be addressed. In the meantime, we have our calculator. We built it to help our residents, but quickly realised that it could be used nationally. The DWP and NHS have used it on a recent recruitment drive, and we've shared it with national homeless providers. On our leaflet, you can see we have a QR code. Please try it out for yourselves and share it with your clients and colleagues. You will receive these slides with the QR code, so don't worry if you haven't been able to use it yet. We're about to start the question and answer session, and while we're getting ready for that, please take a look at the next slide, which shows some of the many jobs our residents have done over the years. So Q&A.
Okay. So we're having a look now at the questions and answers. So someone has said they're surprised that people can keep working and be in supported accommodation, as they've always been told by providers that they can't, and people are told they'll be evicted. Is this the case in all supported accommodation across the UK?
Goodness me. It shouldn't be. However, we have also come up against that with some providers in Brighton and Hove. It could be that housing providers feel that they'll risk the income stream that they'll receive from housing benefit if they're relying on people to pay their rent from their wages. But it's something that we would strongly, it shouldn't be happening. But I think without further legislation, without further support from homeless providers like ourselves to say that we should find ways, because it should be possible for people to live in supported accommodation and work. Don't know if anyone else has got anything else on that.
I think sometimes housing providers, as we said, are quite fearful. They don't understand how wages would impact housing benefit. Therefore, it's sort of a blanket rule of better be safe than sorry. People don't work and we know we'll get our housing benefit, where the whole point of our calculator is to enable staff and clients, residents to feel more informed, more confident about, if I work and I earn this much, this will happen to my benefits. So everybody's really clear as to what will happen when they do earn and what might happen to their UC, their housing benefit.
And there's another question saying there is no clear guidance, reworking and decrease in enhanced HB. Even the job centre don't fully understand it. It's overly complicated compared to historic thresholds of 16-hour earnings on JSA. we've heard this a lot, even from our residents who, when they tell their work coaches at the job centre that they're in supported accommodation, they kind of blank and sometimes even suggest that the person doesn't work.
Mhm.
Whereas that's, again, one of the reasons we've developed the calculator, because people can see, you know, I can work, my earnings might not drop at all, or my benefits might not drop at all if I earn a certain percentage, or if I earn over a threshold, my benefit won't just completely stop. I'll have to pay a bit more towards my rent, and housing benefit will pay a bit less. So we think it is possible, and we have many residents who work with us.
Yeah.
As long as people have the correct information, we think it is possible for residents to work in supported accommodation. And again, we would encourage everyone to use our calculator.
Yeah.
Also, people have a history of working, so they have been used to paying rent. And, you know, we want to make sure that people have that chance.
Let's see. Someone's asked how we deal with 0-hour contracts using the calculator. We've historically had many residents on 0-hour contracts. So you can, again, change the amount of hours. It doesn't have a major effect on the calculator. You can put in 0 hours. The way we would work it is if, for example, if someone gets paid monthly, we would work out a calculation for each month, knowing that, you know, the wages might change each month. It gets a bit more complicated with people who are working weekly, but then we kind of do an average across a month, and we can still use the calculator for that.
I mean, I guess it's perhaps worth us sharing that for residents in the Accommodation for Work project, they are asked to share their earnings and their pay slips with support staff so that they can help them sit down and work out how much rent they're going to have to contribute themselves. Because although housing benefit get that information, it's so much later down the line that if the support workers don't do that, they end up with housing benefit overpayments, which then complicates matters further.
So someone has said housing benefit and UC housing element are often difficult to distinguish. It's often difficult to distinguish the two. Most clients don't understand the difference. So generally with universal credit housing element, people would have to be in private rented or private rented accommodation generally. If people are in a hostel, they're usually having to claim universal credit for their personal living costs and housing benefit for their rent. So if you're on housing benefit, you kind of know that you're in a hostel or vice versa. Want to take that one? So someone else has asked if there's someone who is 25 plus and earning £2,000 per month and on LCWRA, would this not trigger a review?
Oh, yeah.
As they are fit to work full-time hours and may not be seen to need support?
I mean, I think this is something that we have raised, and I think it goes back to the earlier question in the quiz about people are fearful of losing their, or can be fearful about losing their benefit, or the impact that work may have, particularly on their sickness-related benefit. Now, we have been reassured by the job centre here that someone working wouldn't trigger a work capability assessment, which is the thing that would need to happen before someone's category of UC was changed. But I think one thing we're always mindful of, if people do start to work or people get better, they may well, as people get better, they may well, when they come up to their review time, be seen as fitter for work, and that could change their category. But that could happen anyway, I suppose. But I think that link with it is a difficult one, and it's a difficult system to navigate, where perhaps the financial rewards, or I don't know if there's a better word, but the financial gain is higher for people in certain categories than it is for others. So it is a difficult one, but we have been reassured that it shouldn't trigger. But yeah, we tread that line quite carefully, and I think it's all about residents being really informed themselves. It is their decision. It's about them getting informed and them understanding where they stand, making those decisions.
Someone else has commented, in regards to the cliff edge, would you recommend applying for a DHP due to shortfall with housing benefit recalculations being in arrears? We've spoken to our local housing benefit department, and they have suggested doing a DHP. Also, when we've raised this at a more national level with MPs, they also said that discretionary housing payment should be used to bridge this gap. We have been in contact with senior DWP officials through our Make Work Pay for Everyone campaign, and we're looking together at ways to try to mitigate the cliff edge. So we're hoping in the future that there might be a change which would reduce the cliff edge.
Yeah, and I would say, because we've developed a good relationship with our housing benefit department. So now if people are hitting that cliff edge through their earnings, we will just apply for DHPs quite standardly. If anyone wanted any particular help with that, by all means, contact us. We'll give you our contact details at the end. We're happy to share any of the things that we found useful for people. Because we don't like to see that people in work will be worse off.
And it's not, the DHPs are not to clear people's arrears, because we calculate what somebody needs to pay towards their rent. They then pay that, and then the DHP is to bridge the gap between them being worse off from living in a homeless hostel and having to claim housing benefit, as opposed to living in private rented and claiming UC housing costs. So when we generally do get the DHPs, this is like a bonus payment that then makes them go in even more credit, because they've already paid their rent towards us. The DHP is not for arrears.
And someone has said, how do you manage move-ons when it looks like living in supported accommodation and working may actually mean you're better off than living in private rented and relying on the housing benefit? I think we kind of see it the other way, really, because if our residents are moving out into private rented, it's quite a lot easier to manage, because universal credit, when you receive that for your housing element, everything is calculated automatically each month. They receive your notification of how much you've earned from the HMRC. And for us, it seems like a much less clunky system than having to navigate between UC and housing benefit. So I think it would make more sense to a resident who's living in private rented, because they're not having to navigate these two competing benefits, and everything would just be worked out on their UC, and they'd be able to see their statement each month to see where they're at.
However, of course, for residents who are in the LCWA group and working, as they move from supported accommodation into general needs accommodation, they lose the higher work allowance, and they get a lower work allowance. So the higher work allowance figure of 684 drops to, I think it's £411 per month. So for them, there is perhaps a disadvantage of moving out. This is an unusually lucky advantage that people have whilst they're in supported accommodation. And many of our residents actually accept this as a real bonus, and can be quite good about thinking they will use that as savings to help them to move on.
And someone has said, often in supported accommodation, the staff are the people applying for and monitoring housing benefit payments. Are changes to payments of HB easy to manage for staff? Let's say easy. I mean, we're in the
Big part of our job.
Yeah, we're in the same situation, because the support workers in the team are the ones who are applying for housing benefit and monitoring the changes. So, I mean, the way that we do it is, if someone gets a job, we would support them to report the change in circumstances to their UC and to housing benefit. We also ask that residents send us their pay slips whenever they're paid, so we can do a calculation using the calculator of how much they would need to pay. As I'm sure you're aware, housing benefit pays 4 weeks in arrears. So if we waited until then, the money would be gone. And then we also sent forward on the pay slips to housing benefit. So I don't know if I'd say it's easy, but we found a way of doing it.
I guess it's like most things, the more you do it, the more familiar you become, and the easier it becomes over time.
I think we have pretty much answered most of the questions. Yeah, I think so. We will go through the chat afterwards and respond to people individually if we haven't got to your questions, if you put your email address. And again, we'll be sharing the slides for everyone.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Okay. Just go back to us and then chat.
Okay, back to the. We've given you a brief overview of the Accommodation for Work project and how we support residents into work. And we've shown you our Getting Ready for Work calculator. Please do try it out for yourselves and share it with your clients and colleagues, and even your local job centres it may be quite useful. We hope we haven't bamboozled you too much with maths and that the session has been useful. You'll find some helpful resources on the following slide. All of these slides will be shared with you after the conference. Wishing you, we're,
It's trying to function.
oh, we're just about to change. We've, wishing you all the best with supporting people into work. We're always interested to hear feedback on the calculator. And please, you can also contact us if you've got any questions following today's session. We'll get back to you individually. Thank you for your time and participation today, and apologies for any of the technical glitches, but I hope you found that interesting. And do get in contact with us if there is anything else. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.